Fatherhood Engagement, and he's been kind enough to bring this group to us a few times. John O'Neill is the director of the Nurturing Fathers program, and he'll introduce the fathers that are here to speak. So enjoy.
Thank you, Pat.
Thank you.
So I just want to say a couple of words as director of. You want to?
Yeah, that's best.
So I just want to say a couple of words as director of Fatherhood Engagement. As you can see, we have a film, someone who's filming us today, and that's because you know, a lot of the people sitting up here are famous, and one of them is Michael Griswold, and he's the subject of an award and a documentary and so forth. So just so you all know, basically, the filming is really of him. So the only thing people are going to see are the back of your heads. And I encourage you to be as free as usually you would be in terms of asking questions, reacting, and so forth. So having said that, I just want to introduce this team. I'm very proud to bring this group. And they bring to life the promise of engaging fathers. They really are. They're wonderful people. I actually have, you know, personal friendships with them. We spend a lot of time fishing together, which doesn't mean we catch fish, but we spend a lot of time in the activity. And these men have all done very well. But I just want to underline something. That doesn't make them heroes. I think what really makes them powerful is that they have been very consistent over time. So, you know, if you spoke to all of their children, and I know all of their kids, except for Michael's, but if you spoke to their kids, they would tell you, my daddy's there always. He's got my back. He's got my back even when he's angry at me, when something hasn't gone well. And that's really the proof. And these are men who kind of look at themselves in the mirror, do self-reflection, and that's what they have gained. So I think, you know, I have another friend, Hajai Shearer, who said what we teach and what we do in fatherhood programs is love. And I think that's a reality. That's a doorway that a lot of men who may have been toxic in their lives, both to other people and to themselves, that's a doorway that helps them change. And it helps them step up in a really profound way. And we can do that. You and we can do that with a lot of people. You know, what you do makes an enormous difference in terms of, you know, making sure we work with fathers, making sure we don't accept a father who just wants to avoid us, making sure that if a father's negative, we keep on saying to him, look, I really want to work with you because you can make a big difference for your children. So all these things that I'm saying and the presentation that you're going to hear and the positive outcomes that you're going to hear from attending a fatherhood groups are also research-based. But I know that if I talk to you about research, you would immediately go to sleep, no matter how much coffee we brought for you. So this is much better, but be aware that this is not just good, moving, deep stories, but it's also what research says will happen if we do a series of things. And the final thing that I want to say is that this office has had a fatherhood engagement leadership team for a long time. Like many teams, it's a little bit beset right now by the caseload. I'm sure that we will revive it and we will move forward. My commitment is to work with you in whatever you want to do. So without further ado, I want to turn things over to my colleague, John O'Neill, Director of the Nurturing Fathers Program at the Family Nurturing Center. It took me 6 years to get that straight. Seven. And aspiring fisherman. So.
Just let me stop by saying this here. When Fernando mentioned fishing, it's more of a euphemism, you know. We don't actually catch fish. And he told me a long time ago, it's not about the fish, John, it's about the brotherhood. I said, the heck with that, man, I want to fish, you know. But my name is John O'Neill, as Fernando has said, and I'm director of the Nurturing Fathers Program. The gentleman you see beside me and over in the corner lurking there are graduates of the Nurturing Fathers Program. And for the last, it's been about 7 years now, I do believe, we've been going across the state talking about fatherhood engagement and responsible fatherhood. I was asked by the Park Street Felt team about 7 years ago, could I bring some graduates of my program to what they call the training. And the idea was to have these gentlemen who've experienced the DCF system, had some challenges, some difficulties, and some successes, to engage with the staff and to let the staff know how these men experience these systems. And we think it's really important for the workers to understand from the father's perspective the kind of challenges, as I said, and difficulties that they encounter in this particular system. Now, we've seen a lot of gains in terms of how DCF interacts with fathers and works with fathers. The question used to be, should we work with fathers? And that's going back 7 or 8 years. That question is now obsolete. The question now is, how should we work with fathers? Because the reality is that father is going to be in the home with the children, whether we like it or not. You know, so these gentlemen each have a compelling story. When you hear their stories, I'm sure that you'll be moved. And like Fernando said, these guys are kind of representative of many fathers who attend the Nurturing Fathers program. We really believe in the group process, and I've seen some men, including these 3 men before you, make some tremendous strides in their life, transform their lives, and come to a much better place. And for each of these men here, what they will tell you, if you ask them about how they experience their DCF worker, they'll tell you that their worker has a lot to do with how they navigated the system and where they've come to now in their life. So you guys, as DCF workers, working with families and fathers, right, really play a big role in how that father is introduced to the system, how he is engaged by the system, and really how he navigates the system. You guys have a lot of influence over the people you work with, whether you realize that or not. And I know that you didn't come to DCF to make a lot of money. Now, if that was your intent, you're in the wrong place. I'm telling you now. Ain't no money here. You came here because you really want to make a difference, and you really want to help. And I think that is at the core and at the heart of each DCF worker, that you really want to help. And we understand the current climate that we're working under now within DCF, and all the news reports and the sensationalism of the newspapers, man, puts you under a lot of stress. We know that. I can't say that we can relieve the stress, but what I can tell you is that the work you are doing is worthwhile, and don't ever lose sight of that, right? The work you do is very, very important. So having said that, I will introduce to you each of the gentlemen in turn, and they'll tell you their stories. So I'm going to introduce my man to my left here, Xavier Cadona from New Bedford first. Xavier Cadona.
Good morning, everybody. You would think it was a Monday morning.
Say good morning again.
Good morning, everybody. Yes. So I have to walk and talk. I hope you guys don't mind. So my goal today is kind of to share a little bit of my story with you guys and a little bit of my experience. Okay, but first, in order for me to share with you, I'm going to ask you to do something for me. And I would like you to think what comes to your mind when you hear your first childhood memory. Your very first childhood memory. What was it? Who were you with? What were you wearing? What were you doing? What were your emotions like? Your very first childhood memory. And then I would like for somebody to share that experience of their very first childhood memory. Do we have a brave soldier in the crowd? The laughter says yes. Come on. I'm not going to go if you don't go.
Are you looking for like memories with fathers?
Your very first childhood memory, whatever it is. Good.
To me, personally, it was more like father was not there, not because he didn't want to, because he lived in a different country. So I knew what it was to live with mom and my sisters, which was normal. And then, like, it was just normal.
Yeah.
It's like a house of girls who argue constantly.
All right. It's kind of a sad memory. All right. Thank you. Anybody else? First childhood memory. First childhood memory. How about on this side? Yep, you know it. Very first childhood memory. Oh, yeah.
Oh boy. Maybe like going on vacations with
Okay, good. Good memory. Happy memories. Very good. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for stories. Thanks for your time. So those were some of your stories. Now let me tell you about mine. So at the age of 2, I remember I was sitting in front of a big box television. You guys remember the ones with the rabbit ears for the extensions? When all of a sudden I heard a bunch of screaming. And when I looked out the window, I saw some biting. And that's when I realized that my grandmother and her man were fighting. And I ran outside and fists were flying, and I was scared for my life. And when I looked down, I noticed in his hand, the man was holding a knife. And you have to forgive me sometimes, I get a little emotional. But he hit my grandmother once and then struck her twice. Now could you imagine this horrific sighting with all this blood pouring out? At 2 years old, and all I could do was scream, "Please guys, stop fighting." Then a neighbor came out. She ran me across the street. She threw me in a dark room. Remember now, people, this is at the age of 2. At the age of 3, I have another memory. It's not worse than the first, but still today makes my heart bleed. And I remember I was standing on the porch watching my mom play handball. And a cruiser approached. Out came 2 officers of the law. And they looked at my mom and said, "Excuse me, miss, are you so-and-so?" And I remember she looked at me with the confusion on her face, with no response at all. The 2 men slammed their face on the floor. And then they picked her up and they threw her in the cruiser. And I remember that feeling of being angry at these 2 men that bruised her. And again, a neighbor came out. And then she threw me in a dark room, but this time she says, "Don't come out until I come and get you." The next time the door opened, you know what I saw? It was a tall, dark man in a black trench coat, accompanied with another officer of the law. And I remember I ran so fast out that closet and so fast around that coffee table, and these guys are chasing me behind me, and they're saying, "It's okay, son, we're here to save you." And just like my mom, I was thrown in a car. Now, as a young child, I remember feeling scared and lost. Now accompanied with my 2 siblings who were filled with fear, and I remember my sleeves dripping, soaking wet from wiping both of their face from their tears. And that's the first time I heard the word foster care. And then there too were times that I dread, like the second day I was there when my brother acted out. That night he was tied, arms and legs, overnight to a bed. So, those times were really rough. But it was nothing like the next day, and the hurt and pain, when they took my brother from us. 6 months later, that black Jeep was back, but this time my grandmother hopped out the seat from the back. Now at this point, I remember being so excited, seeing my brother and my sister, all of us, reunited. Fast forward a few years, I moved to the projects. But by this time in my life, I had so many regrets. And it mainly was my father, and why he didn't care, and why he never bothered. You know, and as time went on, I'd get a letter in the mail, only from him when he was locked up in jail. And this angered me as time went on, until at one point I felt like I was nothing but rage in a cage trapped in a bomb. So for my teen years, I became so very, very violent. At one point, 365 days of that year, I put my fists on someone in raging for silence. I remember at the age of 13 was the first time that I smoked and I drank. Because in my mind, in my life, thug life was for saints. And at the age of 14, I had no respect for folks because I was angry and mad at my dad because I felt he was a joke. With rage at its peak at 15, I had a mild stroke. And when I recovered, the curse was a blessing. Assault and battery with a dangerous weapon to the young man who called me a bastard. I had to teach him a lesson. And at the time, I didn't even know what the word means. But it has to do with my father, and the only person to speak negatively of him was going to be me. So at the age of 18, I had my first daughter. And I swore up and down I would never, never be nothing like my father. Because as long as my baby had the best, I did my job. Not knowing that that type of fathering style was really wrong. Remember, my baby at the age of 2, she was hanging with Daddy on the corner. She tapped me on the leg, said, "Daddy, I love you." And I bent down, I looked that little girl in the eye, I said, "What are you trying to do? Are you trying to make me soft? Are you trying to make Daddy look like a fool?" The look on that little girl's face of confusion and distraught has left a scar till today on this dad's heart. And at the age of 3, she received a call from the penitentiary. And it was me. It was me. "Happy birthday, baby, and I'm sorry I couldn't be there." And it was at that point I realized I was just like my dad who didn't care. So the next 3 days I spent in my cell crying, praying, crying. Let me get out so I could be the man trying. A few years later, I had my second child. Then the next one, I had 2 more. I was on my 4th child now. And then I was introduced to this father's nurturing program. And it was what's created what you see in front of you today. This now today new man. It's a place where men learn to nurture their health. A place where men learn to grow, to work on themselves. A place where they learn and it benefits the relationship with them and their kids and everybody else. It's a place where real men exist, real men that I've never seen, real men that laugh, cry, hug their kids. And for me, for one, I'm being sick and tired of being judged for my Corey. And for all you in this room today, look what the Father's Nurturing Program has done just for me. Don't let that Corey be the one to fool you. Sit down and ask the questions. Let the father, the dad, the man be the one to dictate the type of man he is to you. And when you do that and take the time and ask the questions, you find out things like, today, I'm a dad of 5 beautiful children. 5. 4 out of the 5 live at home with me. The only son I have is not biologically mine, but I was there during his development stages. I was there during the birth. I am there now, and I will be there for him until the day I die, because I know the value and the importance of being a dad and being involved in my children's life. I know the impact and the value of being a dad. You'll find out things like today, I'm part of this Father Speak team. You'll find out, other than that 14 or 15-page Corey, that today I'm a member of the Family Advisory Committee for Central Office. Today I'm the Father's Family Liaison of the Southeast region of Massachusetts for Central Office. Today I'm on the area board for DCF in New Bedford. Today I am an area board member of New Bedford Community Connections Coalition. Today I facilitate the program I once graduated from. I'm a facilitator of the Father's Nurturing Program. You find out that today I'm a licensed massage therapist, that today I'm a certified emergency medical technician, that today, and I can keep going on and on and on, but I need for the social workers of today to ask today's questions. And in closing, remember my story, remember my Corey, rhymes are fun and cool. Judge the man you see before you and not the man he was before. Again, judge the man you see before you and not the man he was before. Thank you for your time.
I want to tell you, this is an amazing young man. And a couple of points that he made. One is the Corey issue, which is huge, a huge issue. the thing about the query is that not everybody knows how to read a query. And on a query, sometimes the same offense is listed 3 or 4 times. And if, to the uninitiated eye, it looks like different offenses. And so when a person reads the query, and I've known workers who have a caseload, and on that caseload they have a family, and they see the father's query. And without ever having met the man, without ever having talked to him, or looked in his eyes, or know what's in his heart, they make a determination that he can't be around his children. He's unsafe. He needs anger management, he needs the batter's program, he needs the father's program. He needs to jump through hoops of fire to see his children. And it's not fair at all. Because the number one complaint I get from guys, right, is that in the DCF system, a mother can mess up time after time after time, and she's given chance after chance after chance. But the same is not true for fathers. So this really has been an unfair system to fathers. And they have different requirements than mothers do. What they're told is that you don't have to go to the Nurturing Fathers program, but we strongly recommend it. Xavier had the courage to come and sit in a circle for 13 weeks and tell his story and talk about intimate details of his life. And in doing this, this young man has transformed his life from that thug, right, to the gentleman that he just told you he was. Now, one thing he didn't say is he is, at his young age, a leader in the New Bedford community in terms of fatherhood. He is probably the man in New Bedford. And
That's why I wear the hat.
that's the man, that's right. And he's done such a great job, right, that in a couple of weeks, we're sending him down to Sarasota, Florida, to be trained in nurturing philosophy with Dr. Mark Perlman, who wrote the Nurturing Fathers curriculum, and with the plan to add Xavier to our statewide training team. So that's how well he's done. So this is an amazing young man. Please give him another hand, please. Yeah. You know, it's not easy to sit before strangers, right, and to tell your story that's often filled with pain, you know, so for him to do that is an amazing thing. I'm going to give you next a young man who's going to tell you another story, very compelling story of his journey and where he's at now. And this camera is here for him, and you see how he weaves his story. He's just come a long way. So I give you Michael Griswold.
Get my good side.
Every side your good side, man.
Good morning. My name is Mike, and it's an honor to be here today. My story is a lot of pain. Before I got here, 8.5 years ago, I lived under a bridge in Boston, and it was real difficult for me to live due to my drug addiction. I don't hide my drug addiction because that's part of where I'm at today. And it was real hard for me, you know, like living under a bridge. I wasn't raised like that. And like, it was a lot of negativity dealing with things I didn't want to deal with, you know, and like as time went on, I learned about, you know, what I had to do to change my life. And as time went on, I got better with the program because I was around for a while with the recovery part. And when I went into this detox, I was like 90 pounds. I was hurting, I was in a wheelchair. I couldn't walk, you know, and like I wanted to die. You know, and the guy under the bridge asked me, he was like, "You need help?" And I said, "No, I wanted to die." And he brought me to this place, and I ended up getting help, and I got better. And I went on and on with my journey, and I learned about, you know, Xavier talked about feelings. Like where I grew up from, if you cried, you know, you was weak. It was a sign of weakness for a guy to cry, you know. But I started learning about why did I use and what made me get to where I'm at today. You know, as the time went on, I was involved in a relationship with my kid's mother, who she was using as well, and I lost contact. When I went in the halfway house, I lost contact, and I never saw her, so it was to where I got a phone call from one of the doctors at the hospital, and my son was born, and they told me to come to the hospital, and I got to hold him. There was 2 ladies there, and it was DSS back then. Same thing though. But they told me I'd never see my son again. I held my son like this, and they drove away with him. And that was the most painfulest feeling in my life. You know, I never been like shot or stabbed, but that was the most painfulest thing I ever went through. So I went back to the halfway house, and I started to work on me. I started to open up about like, why did I use and get high? Because I didn't want to deal with life. You know, because growing up I was into like Pop Warner, and it's pretty good too, actually. But then all that went downhill. My grandmother died in '07 of breast cancer, and you know, it was a struggle for me because, you know, I had to work on my life. I had to get better, and at this halfway house, you had to go to job search. So I went out looking for a job. I came back, the same 2 ladies were there, and they took me in a park, and I ended up getting a visit. You know, they're like, yeah, we're from DSS, and they gave me a chance because I had 90 days clean. And, you know, they was talking to me, they handed me like a book like this. It was way thicker than this, like the service plan. They call it that. You know, I never went through that. I heard like females talking about, you know, DCF got me on a service plan. And I got to experience it, you know, and what was different was they said, you have to do this, you have to do that. You have to go to 8 meetings within a span of 2 weeks. You have to go to do urines like twice a week. I did a urine every week. I did about like 20 meetings a week, because in the area where I'm at, they know me from like the recovery, you know, the process, and it got better. You know, they turned the car seat around, and my son was in there, and he had like an afro like this, and he smiled at me, and I like broke down, man, and I had to realize I had to get my life together, you know. So as time went on, it was like, you know, we're gonna work on getting you visits, and you know, and I had the visits. They was like really monitoring me, see if I was gonna drop them, or you know, see if I was nodding off, or. But I was interacting with him, I was playing with him. You know, he never threw up on me at the time anyway, but in the next 2 weeks when they came back, they said we're gonna do unsupervised visits. And in my head, I mean, they like, that means they leave me with them by myself, and I didn't have no parenting skills, so when they left, as soon as they turned the corner, his face got real tight, you know, like when he gotta go number 2, and I had to do my best, you know. I didn't know how to really, so I went in the diaper bag, I put the diaper on him. You know, I thought I was doing the right thing, but I changed them to the best of my ability, and they came back, and it was like, was the visit all right? I'm like, yeah, we're real good, you know. So they brought him to the foster home, and the foster parents was like, is the dad okay? And she was like, yeah, why? It's like the diaper was on backwards, you know, and they said, well, this is his first visit, and he's trying to get back together. So as time went on, I had to reach out for help, and I had to ask people, you know, and they told me how to put him on his back, and the sticky thing goes in the front. You don't just tie the diaper on because it fall right off. Thank God it wasn't the pin, you know, he would have been stuck to death. But I got through that, and it got a lot better for me. The DCF worker was talking about going into a DTA shelter, and I got nervous, you know, like you could see my heart race through my shirt, literally, and I got my overnight, and I got really worried because I'm like, now I'm gonna be overnight with him. You know, I'm saying to him like he's a stranger, but it was challenging. I got through it, you know. We got the bond, you know, I started playing with him and stuff. Excuse me, you know, I did a good job, you know. I changed him the right way. You know, I put the baby fresh on him, so when they picked him up, brought him to the foster home. They're like, wow, he got a lot better, I see. You know, he had the Smell Good, the Baby Johnson and Johnson. And the next move was going to court. They're like, well, you're doing a good job, let's go to court. And that was like the scariest day of my life. You know, the DCF worker that told me I'd never see him again gave the judge a good report, said he made every visit, every urine was clean, and we're asking for full custody. You know, in recovery, we have a saying that what's going to be different. Like, I heard that for so many years. So the judge looked at me and like, Mr. Griswold, what's going to be different? So I'm thinking he might be in recovery. Maybe he's working with me. You know, I might have a chance. So, and I said, only thing that'll be different is if you give me a chance, and I can only do what I can do. So he gave me full custody at 18 months. And the lady that said I'll never see him again, she drove me to the family shelter, and in the car, I'm like, I need to ask her why she said that. I said, no, I'm not gonna ask her. So I turn around, my son's in the car seat smiling, I'm in the front seat scared to death, because I'm gonna be with him for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna ask her when we get to the shelter why she say that. So the car pulled up to the shelter, and we got out the car, took my son out, and I said, I was just curious, why'd you ask me or tell me I wasn't gonna see my son again? And she said she only said that to motivate me. And I said, well, you didn't really want to know what I said under my breath, but it wasn't the really nicest thing. But what she said really played a big part to where I'm at today, as long as the Nurturing Fathering program, which really like opened me up and made me the man I am today. 13 weeks, I wasn't stipulated. You know, I wasn't through the courts. You know, I made a call and they said, come down. And we was in a circle, and the first day, like, I fell in love with it. You know, they had lunch, dinner, we had, like, I brought Tupperware to the groups because they had good food, and I brought it home, you know. But what I learned out of it is, like, real men do cry. You know, it is a feeling. And that I always learned this from John, I never forget. When your son's on a bike and he's riding a bike and he falls off, you know, a dad would be like, yeah, get on the bike, wipe it off, you're all right. But if if he falls, a mother's gonna be like, oh, you okay, baby? Let's go in the house, get some peroxide. And that's the nurturing part where, you know, I'm doing today with my son. You know, he's now going on 9. You know, this is him right here. He was 8 in this picture, well, 7. I also made the paper, and this was a Thanksgiving edition. I was in the paper, and this article went viral. It's online, so if y'all want to look it up. I think I left you with a copy before. And today my life is amazing. I have a 2-bedroom apartment. You know, I love these guys here. 13 weeks, I wish it could have been like 20 weeks. You know, I thank Fernando, John, Marv, Wale, he couldn't be here, he's another member. And today I just focus on the importance of being a dad. You know, I know the difference between a dad and a father today. You know, he's in the 3rd grade with a 5th grade reading level, because I focus on, not SpongeBob, but I focus on the importance of education. And he's doing pretty good. You know, he's above average. You know, he has behavioral issues, but I'm not really, you know, I'm working on that with other people. You know, Marv helps me out a lot. I talk to him a lot about, Marv, what should I do? He's doing this and he's doing that. And a lot of it's typical. I just ain't used to it. You know, but I just thank God where I'm at today. You know, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for my God, for my grandmother, you know, who's looking down at me now. And she always seen this coming, but I was just in my own way. You know, in less than 2 months, I have 9 years clean. You know, and I love where I'm at today. I go into prisons through the front door and speak to inmates. and I come out the front door, and I have a compassion for the youth today, you know, because they're out there, they're killing themselves, you know. But I remember what I always was told growing up, you know, never underestimate anybody. Never judge a book by its cover. If you never read the book, you can't say the book's boring, you know. So what I do today is, I'm a dad, I'm a kid at heart, you know, he's teaching me when I'm helping him with his homework. He's like, no, Dad, you gotta, the problem solving, the greater than, less than, round to the nearest 10. I get lost sometimes, and he shows me, you know. So I just want to thank you for having me. You know, today I don't look down at DCF. You know, I love the work you guys do because I understand it now. And I was on TV. I don't know if y'all see me, but you know, I met the old commissioner. Hopefully I meet the new one. And I love the work you guys do. You know, I know the importance of helping somebody today. You know, and today my son has a dad. You know, we get ready to go apple picking in 2 weeks. I'm like amped up for it. You know, I went last year. I was like a little kid, you know. But that's the joy I get out of being a dad. My childhood comes out that I never had because my dad was never there for me. You know, I'm sorry I could get long-winded because this nurturing father thing is awesome, man. You know, it turned men into guys today. You know, and it wasn't for these people, I don't know where I'd be at because I was hurting when I came in here. You know, I'm not 90 pounds anymore. Trying to stay away from the donuts, but you know, love this guy here. I love all these guys. You know, I just want to thank you for having me and keep up the good work. Thank you.
You heard that, right? We have a line that he didn't use today. And the line is that Mike has gone from pissy mattress to Sealy mattress, right? His life is really, really transformed in a very, very short time. And he's, you know, indicative, as I said before, of many guys who come to the Nurturing Fathers program, right? Maybe 7 years ago, 8 years ago, you would have written him off, looking at his history, you know. But you never know what's in a man's heart. You know, you never know what he's capable of, you know. And what we know about men is that we're wired to rise to the task. Most men are. We're task-oriented. If you go to your husband or your boyfriend with a problem, immediately he has to fix it. Oh, you know, I'll fix it for you. Here's the answer, you know. We're Mr. Fix-It. And we all like to see ourselves as heroes, men do. So if you give him the task of being a better father, most men will rise to that task, and they'll do what it takes to be involved in a child's life. Because what we know is, like Xavier and like Mike, most men really, really want to be good fathers. Some of them just don't know how. They haven't had in their life a good male role model, maybe didn't have a stable home. And I'm asked oftentimes, how do you take a man who's not been nurtured himself and turn him into a nurturer? And what I tell people is that parenting is a learned behavior. And we learn it from our own parents. And if it is a learned behavior, it can be unlearned and relearned. And Dr. Bavilek, who developed nurturing philosophy, is what he says. He says, what the nurturing programs do is that they reparent parents. And we give these men a whole new framework within which to understand what it means to be a father and what it means to be a man. And what these groups provide for men is a safe, comfortable, non-judgmental environment wherein they can reassess their role as men and as fathers. Mike has done that, Xavier has done that, and many of the men in your caseload are also as capable if you give them a chance. And I think that's the most that we can do for men, and that's what men ask. Just give me a chance. Give me an opportunity, and I'll show you what I can do. I'll say this, the Nurturing Fathers program is not for every single guy. It just isn't, right? Because not every guy, just like people on your caseload, not everyone is ready and willing and able to move forward in their lives, you know? But let's say if you have a record of 7 out of 10, that's a good record, you know? And we have a record of graduation of something like 82% of all the men that come to our programs complete it and finish it. And, you know, as I said, I've seen some men transform their lives. The next gentleman who I'm going to introduce to you has done just that. An amazing story, and you'll hear his story. Mav Neal.
So, before I start, I just want you to take a minute and think about if I came into your office to meet with you. How would you feel? What would your thoughts be? What were your thoughts as you see me standing here in the room? I really don't want to know. I don't care. But I want you to think about your thoughts of me as you see me stand here before you. When fathers and families come into contact with DCF, there is an expectation that they are to trust you, that you're going to make the right decisions for them. I'm going to ask that you all take a minute right now and trust me as I take you on this journey. I want you to sit as comfortably as possible. Take a deep breath and release. If you're comfortable, I would like you to close your eyes as we take this journey. If you're not comfortable closing your eyes, that's fine. But I think you'll get more out of this if you close your eyes. Take another deep breath. We're going to take a trip. We're going to take a vacation. And that vacation is going to take us to a tropical island. We're on that island. We're on the beach. The waves are crashing. You and your significant other are there. You're having the time of your lives. Your children are there. They're playing. You're in heaven on earth. The sun is going down, and you're thinking, there's no greater place on earth than right here. You gather your family and you guys get dressed and you go into town. You're gonna grab dinner and you're gonna buy some souvenirs to bring home. As you and your significant other are standing there admiring the souvenirs, the children are about 4 to 5 feet away from you and they're playing as always. Your back is to them, and suddenly you hear, "Mom, Dad, help me." And you turn and you see your child being pushed into the back of a van. The door closes and that van begins to drive away. You run at your fastest pace to catch that van. But that van keeps going, driving further and further away. You look and your child is in the back window of that van, banging on the glass, screaming, "Help me." As that van drives away, you keep running, but you can't catch it, and it's gone. That van has just taken your child and driven away. You're standing there, feeling helpless, hopeless. There's no one to help you. Take a deep breath and come back to me here in the room. That feeling that you have right now, ladies and gentlemen, is the feeling that many fathers have when their children are taken away by the Department of Children and Families. In a lot of cases, the father has had nothing to do with the reason why the children were removed. But when he steps forward, he is denied access, merely based on his quarry. There's been no conversation with the father to determine who he is today. All decisions were made based on his quarry. My son was introduced to the Department of Children and Families And that's exactly what happened to me. I was stopped at the door. Now, at that time, I was married. I'm a homeowner. I had 3 children in the home. My mom lived in the home. When I went to DCF to claim my child, I was told no. I was told that I needed to go through the Nurturing Fathers program. So as I sit here and I think, Nurturing Fathers program, what they need me to do, come in and teach a class? Need me to show some people how to be a good father? Because I know I'm a good father. I grew up with my mother and my father. My father was a state police officer. My mother worked in the hospital. I had the best. We were like the Cosbys. So I'm told, no, you just need to attend the class. And then she stopped and said, well, it's not mandatory, but it's strongly suggested. So I get hit with the infamous service plan. And I'm told I need to do this, and this. And I stop and I think, I could cuss her out and give her a piece of my mind. Tell her where she could put that service plan at. Or I could be smart and think, we're talking about my son here. The next moves that I make are important to what's going to happen to him. So I take on this task and I say, you know what? I'll do anything for my man. So I go to the Nurturing Fathers program. And when I get there, I meet the OG, John O'Neill. He tells me, hey, fill out this paperwork. So I go in the back of the room, I fill out the paperwork, bring it back, I go back and sit in the back of the room. Now I'm looking, he got this little circle with chairs set up. And I'm saying to myself, there's no way in hell I'm sitting in that circle. I'm not doing it. So I go to the back. John says, no, you gotta come on. And the first thing I say to my mind, I'm like, oh boy, here we go. It's starting already. So I go and get in the circle, and as I'm sitting there, I'm mad now. When I first came in the DCF office, I was confused, I was frustrated, I was afraid, but now I'm pissed off because I have to be here. And although it was strongly recommended, we all know what that means. So I sit in the circle, and John says, I want all the guys to stand up. They say, what you expect to get out the program and your name. So I get up. Yo, I'm Marv. I don't want to be here. I'm only here to get my man back because the people told me I had to be here. And I sit down. I'm pissed. I'm shutting down. So John, being the master facilitator he is, he starts to run the group. And he starts to tell the guys about the program. And then he does something that I thought was really profound. He starts to talk about himself. And he actually shares his upbringing, and he talks about his dad, and he talks about how he raised his children. And I'm saying, damn, the OG went through that? Really? I've never had a teacher, a facilitator, anyone that was giving me instruction open up and share a piece of himself. John O'Neill did just that. At the end of the group, before we finished, I got up and I said, I got something to say. When I came in here, I said some things that I want to take back. I think I might be able to get something out this group. I was able to humble myself. And that night, day one, is when the sharing began. So as the weeks went on, I'm picking up new stuff. I'm listening to what he's saying. Now, some of the stuff I ain't necessarily agreeing with, because my moms and pops didn't do all the stuff that he's talking about. So, there was just that natural instinct that was just like, that's not right. So I'm listening, and I'm like, okay, maybe I should go home and tell my kids I love them. I wasn't telling them that every day. And he's saying that's important. So I do it. And I tell them, and they smile, and they're happy. And I'm like, oh, Maybe that does work. One check mark for John O'Neill. So, as the group's going on, we sitting in this circle, and there's this guy bigger than me. So this dude's like maybe 6'7", like maybe 300 pounds. He look like he's like a linebacker. So we sitting in the circle, and we talking. So I know I'm gonna ask him something, and he's bigger than me. So I slide the chair next to me over to create an escape route. So he says, yeah, man, I'm from South Carolina. And when I grew up, my dad, he put his foot in my chest. I'm like, damn. Anytime I act up, he put his foot in my chest, straighten me out. And that's how I treat my son. Now, his son's like 14 years old, so I looked down at his foot, man. This dude had like a size 17. So all I could think about was, damn, that's a pretty big foot to land on anybody's chest. So I say to him, so my man, and I'm kind of leaned over this way, just to, to get the motion going. So I'm like, you say, your pops put his foot in your chest, and you put your foot in your son's chest. Let me just ask this, no disrespect, but does it work? And then he sits there, and he's like, what you mean? I said, well, you say you put your foot in your son's chest. Does it make him change whatever he's doing? Well, it makes him stop. Yeah, it may make him stop what he's doing, but it won't change the behavior. You just said that you go to the school every week because your son's acting up, and you're putting your foot in his chest every week. That means it's just stopping the action, but not changing the behavior. He's like, man, you might be right. I said, yo, listen, man, this is what we're going to do, man. Saturday, bring your son. We're going to go to the park, hang out. Go to the park? I said, yeah, nothing funny, bro. Bring your son. We're going to go to the park, hang out. So we go to the park on Saturday. He meets me. I got my son. He got his son. I got a football. So he's like, what's up, man? What we here for? So I tossed the football to him. He throws the football to his son and says, go play. I said, no, not like that, man, not like that. Come on, come down here with me. So I got his son and my son on one end, me and him on the other end. We start throwing this football. I'm looking. He's having a good time. I'm looking at his son. Now they, a good ways down. And the sun is to my back, beaming this way. And all I see is this little black boy with these bright white teeth and bright eyes just gleaming all over the place. And that's how I know that this little dude is happy. I'd never seen this little 14-year-old boy smile the whole time we've been going to the group. So I take my son and we go off to the side. They keep throwing the ball. They threw that football for like 45 minutes. It was the first time he had ever thrown a football with his son. After we finished, he said, all right, man, I appreciate it. Okay, cool. Went home, went back to the group the following week. He came in, he was like, yo, man, let me tell you, brother, that was awesome, man. My son, he didn't get in trouble one time this week. I said, yeah, but it don't stop here. You got to continue. Tell your kids you love them. I stole that from John. Tell your kids you love them. Play with them. Take them out. He said, yeah, man, I'm going to do that. And that was another example of the sharing that went on in this group. So as the time goes on, I'm feeling the OG. He's telling me some things, stuff that I could use, I could appreciate. So he goes on to say that it's okay for boys to cry. Hold up. The buck stops here. I'm drawing a line in the sand. Boys don't cry. That's how I was raised. That's how I raised my kids. Boys don't cry. You got to make them hard. You got to make them strong. So when they get out in the street, they don't get pushed around. I don't want my sons being called punk or sissy. So I'm teaching my boys, you better not cry. So John says, so if a boy gets cut on the leg and a girl gets cut on the leg, is it going to hurt the same? And I'm like, here we go. Here we go. He's trying to get technical. But boys ain't supposed to cry anyway. So he starts talking about what happens if you teach your boys they're not supposed to cry. And I'm thinking, damn, Maybe. So I'm home one day, I'm sitting on the porch, kids outside playing. My son, he's out there playing. He comes over to me and he's like, "Look, Daddy, I'm a man." Now this little dude's 4 years old. He got a gash in his leg. Blood's pouring out. I thought the sock was Kirk Schillings. It was so much blood. He's standing there like I'm a man. So I say to him, "Does it hurt?" And he's like, "Nope." And all I could think about, and I'm saying to myself, what the hell am I doing to this little dude? I'm teaching him to suppress his feelings, which will inadvertently affect him the rest of his life, even in adulthood. And I'm like, "Yo, for real, like, tell the truth, man, does it hurt?" And he's like, "For real?" I'm like, yeah, does it hurt for real? He's like, "Oh God, my leg. Oh, the blood, I'm gonna die, it's falling off. Help me, please." So I'm like, all right, come on, what's going on? So we go in, get it cleaned up. It really wasn't that bad. You know, we get it bandaged up, come outside, sit back down. So he's sitting next to me and he's looking at me and he's like, "Daddy, can I go play?" So I'm like, "Yeah, go ahead." So he walks away, turns around, and he's like, "Daddy, I love you." And I'm like, "Damn, I love you too, man." And it just hit me. It was just like, wow, all the stuff that I've been learning is just really coming full circle. So I'm just like taking all these experiences and all the stuff that I'm learning in the Nurturing Fathers program, and I'm using it in my real life, and it's actually working. Allow the kids to have a voice. Growing up, seen, not heard. You didn't have the option of saying what you wanted, what you liked or didn't like. This nurturing stuff got in me. And the more it got in me, the more I grew.
No tipping, please. Don't do it hours. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate you. Okay, we'll hold off on that. So I went from being a participant of the Nurturing Fathers program to being a facilitator of the Nurturing Fathers program. I really believed in the process. I began to grow. Everything that I learned, I've used in my everyday life. It has not only helped me with my children, it has helped me in the way I relate to people in general. I am not only a facilitator of the Nurturing Fathers program, I'm a full-time employee at the Family Nurturing Center. I, like Xavier, am a liaison for the Greater Boston area for the Ombudsman's Office of DCF. I am also a member of the Family Advisory Committee for DCF, which means I get an opportunity to talk about policy when it comes to DCF, which is incredible. I never knew that the community could have a voice. I'm from the community, I have a voice, and it's heard. I recognize and have recognized that social workers work hard. You come into this job, hopefully, come into this job wanting to do the right thing. And sometimes you get caught up. You get caught up in the culture. You get caught up in what's going on in the office. You get caught up because you got 20 cases. I know it's difficult to manage 20 cases. So you may stop doing what's right and just start doing what you need to do to get by. And that's how things get missed. That's how fathers get overlooked. Because when you add a father to a case, that's a whole nother household you gotta visit if he's not in the home. That's a whole nother person that you gotta deal with, a whole nother personality. And you're thinking, do I really wanna do that? I called him. He didn't answer. He didn't call me back. So you're not gonna be persistent to push. A lot of fathers are not trusting. They're afraid. They don't trust systems because systems haven't treated fathers good. There are a lot of men out here, such as myself and these gentlemen at the table, who love their children. The difference between us and all these other guys out there is we weren't taking no for an answer. We stood up to the challenge and fought. There are a lot of guys out here who want to be a part of their children's lives, but they just don't know how. What we're asking is, when you have a father on your caseload, take the time, communicate with him. Look at his query. I'm not saying discount the query, but talk to him and ask him about it. Imagine this: you look at a query and you see murder. You're like, oh, murder, oh. You get nervous. You think, oh man, this man's been in jail for 15 years, right? The alarms go off and you automatically say, I'm not going to visit him by myself. But then you bring him in the office. Still a little nervous, so you have him sit on the other side, you sit near the door, right? And then you ask him, I'm just curious, as I look at your query, I see there's a murder charge on here. You served 15 years in prison. Can you tell me what happened with the murder? And then he says to you, well, when I was 18, my mom's boyfriend was beating her up. And he was choking her, and she was turning blue. And I didn't know what to do, so I grabbed the lamp and I hit him in his head. And he fell, and he hit his head on the nightstand, and he died. That's why I went to jail. You start to look at him a little bit differently, because you gave him the opportunity to explain what happened. You do your homework and your research, and you find out exactly what he said is exactly what happened. He's really not that murderous person. He was protecting his mom. Give men a chance. That's all I ask. Thank you so much for your time.
I want to say a couple of things. First, when Mav talks about his first night in the group, that's perfectly true. He came in, pretty big guy. He came in and he was very angry, had those same dark glasses on and wouldn't take them off the whole night. And he said what he said when the group began. Each guy had to stand up and say what his name was, a few things that he'd like the group to know about him, and one reason why he's here. And Mav said, I don't belong here. I'm a good father. Man, I'm here to get my man. I don't want to be here. And he sat down, all angry, And so we went through the group. And he had enough presence of mind, and he had enough, compassion and openness to listen to the other guys. And at the end of the night, this is the first night now, before we leave, he stands up and said, I want to say something, guys, please. He said, I said some things early on tonight that I want to apologize for. And after hearing all your stories, he said, I realize I do belong here, and I can gain something from here, so I'm really sorry for what I said earlier. And the interesting thing happened, never happened before, hasn't happened since. At the end of each group, we do a group hug, and we do it for solidarity and for bonding, because that's what happens in the groups, the men bond together. And so after we did the group hug, me and the other two facilitators, right, witnessed this. This is the first night now. Each guy went to every other guy individually and began to hug each other, man. It was phenomenal. It was amazing. I'd never seen it before or since. But that's how close his group became. We had, I think, 15 guys to start and 14 graduated. That was 7 years ago, so you see he's still here with me, right? He's like my little brother. When mommy says, take your little brother with you, you think, oh, man, come on, Well, he's that little brother, and everywhere I go, he goes,
So I just want to add one last piece. I myself, very much like Mike, currently I am a single father raising my 3 youngest children. And my hat goes off to all the single mothers, because it's not easy. It's not easy being a single parent. And I don't look for any kudos for what I do, because women have been doing it for ages. I look for no kudos. I look for no hand claps and no great job. I'm just doing what my dad taught me to do. So it's possible for a man to be an effective force in the lives of children. So everyone has had their various experiences. And one of the things that we've come into contact with in talking with various social workers is that sometimes you kind of let your baggage cross over into the work. We had one social worker who, and John tells the story, and I'm gonna let him tell it, that had enough wherewithal to notice. If you could just tell him about that, the social worker.
I certainly will, Marv. Now, I was doing a training out in the Lawrence area some years ago, and Marv's right. I always tell the story because in the moment I thought it was profound. As I look back on that, I realized how self-aware this young woman was. She was a young Hispanic woman, and in the training she said this. She said, you know, we were doing this exercise about fathers that we do in the curriculum, and she said, you know, I know that I have some deep-rooted issues about my father, you know, and she explained that he was abusive to her and to her siblings and to her mom, you know, and then he left the family, you know, never took care of them. So she says, I know I got some stuff, you know, and I still hate my father to this day. She said, but you know, as a worker, when I go to a home and I know there's going to be a father there, I have to prepare myself, she said, because I don't want to put on that man what I feel for my father, you know? And I thought, again, that was so profound, that she was so aware of herself, right? As a worker, that she understood that we have a tendency as human beings to superimpose our own cultural values, our own ideals, and our own opinions onto other people. It's human. It's natural that we do this. Even as workers, we do this. But she was so aware, as a worker, that she says, I got to prepare myself. And I use that every single time, because those of us who work with families, we have to be aware of that, you know, that we have our own comfort zone. You know, we have our own ways of looking at things, our own perspective on life. But we can't superimpose those onto the people that we work with, because everyone comes from a different place. You know, I say this in America, we're this melting pot, this tossed salad, if you will. We're this multicultural society. And we may have come here on different ships, but we're all in the same boat now. You understand, right? So, as workers, when you go to a home, you have a home visit, right? There should be an expectation on your part that father be involved. And you should ask mom, you know, well, is dad around, or, you know, where's dad? And here's what you might get from mom. Well, we haven't seen dad in 5 years, you know, but the kid's only 3, so you know that can't be true, you know. And she might say, we haven't seen him, but he might be in the back playing video games. And if you ask the child, when's the last time you saw your father? Oh, he's in the back playing games, so he was here last night, you know. And what we do as systems is we force families to lie. Because mom is afraid that if I tell them that my boyfriend or my husband, my baby daddy, I hate that word, is coming to the home or is in the home, right? They're going to take away my benefits, you know? And we have policies in this country that break up families, you know? And that's so counter to what we're trying to do here as workers, right? We're trying to maintain families. We're trying to take their strengths, you know, and improve on them, and maybe shore up their weaknesses or their shortcomings, right? So, Ma said it earlier, right? It may add a little bit to your caseload, and it might, right? But it also opens up a whole nother family as a resource to you for this child you're working with, you know? And dad has a right, a legal right, to be involved in the life of his child. And many men don't understand that. Like Ma said, they give up. They face some opposition. Oh, I'm not going to win anyway. I give up, and they walk away. As workers, you have a lot to do with that, you know? See that poster right back there? That poster is about, I want to say, 4 years old, right? And the reason why we have that poster, because this team, about 4 or 5 years ago, went to an office. I won't say it was the Chelsea office. I won't say that. And as we're sitting in the lobby, right, and we're about to go present, Mom says to me, John, look at the walls. So I looked around the walls, and I didn't get it. So what do you mean? He said, look at the walls, man. And I still didn't get it. I said, what, man? He said, look at all these posters, man. And there were posters for grandparents, teen parents, right, LGBT, all kinds of posters. There was not one poster in that office, right, in that lobby, showing a man in a healthy pose with his child, you know? And so I said to them when we began our presentation, I said, if you want to, make fathers feel comfortable here, right, you have to do things to make them feel welcome here. You have to put, you know, a Sports Illustrated, something like that, preferably the swimsuit issue, I'm just saying, you know, right? A Men's Health magazine, or something that says to a man, we welcome you here. even sometimes down to the color of your walls. You know, little things count with men. They want to feel welcome. Men don't feel welcome in the first place, so it's your job to make them feel comfortable here. Even down to the receptionist, how she receives them when he comes into the office. And that's very important. So I just want to thank you for listening to us. All these guys' stories are compelling, right? If you have any questions, please feel free and don't be shy.
I just want to say a couple of words before we open questions. What I want to underline very simply is that you have it in your hands, in your power, to launch the men that you work with into the same journey. And it is the journey of attending a fatherhood group. You have both a fatherhood group and a support group going on here. So you have a range of services available. And you have not only what you have in this office, but also in the surrounding community. And I want to say that I've heard a lot of men talk to me about their workers. And I'm very observant, so I realize that most of you are women here. I can tell. And a lot of them have said to me, you know, my social worker was a young woman, but you know, she could listen to me. She actually, again, looked beyond the quarry. So it's not that the man is dictating how she should see him, but it's that she's letting his heart dictate, in part, how she's going to see him. And what the men say is that she listened to me, she saw something in me, and she was like a coach who expected me to do stuff, but also recognized when I did it. And it was at times my advocate. So I think that this is a role that, you know, you may think of yourself as a young woman, you know, you're working with a guy who's older, who's coming across as tough or something like that. You can be very effective in that role. And I remember this case that we worked on together that we just talked about it, but was a young man who was Spanish speaking, had well, he was actually bilingual, but his primary language is Spanish. He'd had a bad experience with DCF in the Boston area 4 years before the case reopened here, and he was angry at DCF. In fact, on the phone, he was swearing a lot. And they called me to, since I speak Spanish, they called me to talk to him to see if someone speaking Spanish could kind of help soften him. And what we found was that he could swear bilingually quite well. What we did, though, is that we made an effort, a serious effort to really listen to him. And sadly, in his case, I don't think he ended up responding in a positive way, but he was able to have some positive visits with his kids. And that was helpful for them because they hadn't seen him in a while. You know, they saw their dad. Some parts of it was just seeing the really rough and painful edges of their dad, but also seeing his love. And even though it didn't work, it's what we owe people, making that effort. So I just wanted to recognize the work that you have done here. And again, you know, it really is in all of your hands. So let's open for questions and comments.